Hola, ¿qué tal? My name is Annie Grimm and welcome back to another video. Today is a very special video because it marks the beginning of a new series here on my channel, exclusive to the month of October, called Spooky October. Everything involving Halloween all October around. It's a special where every year during October we celebrate Halloween with a different theme. This year, we're going to be looking at retellings from favorite and classic fairy tales. From the very beginning, fairy tales have always been about teaching children different morals or values to use in everyday life and to forge them, if we want to use that word, forge them into good adults and good people. And obviously, society changes, but these stories remain the same. And some of the lessons taught in these stories might be lost to time. Fairy tales, the way that they are told, are very much a product of their time. Because yes, they're open to interpretation. And the way we look at lessons or teachings one way during a certain time can change over time. Today, we will be exploring a brand new take on the classic movie from 1937, the animated classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarves by Walt Disney Pictures. As we can see in the book by Jen Calonita called Mirror, Mirror, A Twisted Tale. And this is actually one that I read a few months ago, and it's very interesting, and I feel like you guys are gonna like it. So before we start into the book, let's flip back a couple of pages and rewind on what the movie was about. The movie begins with the evil queen, who happens to be Snow White's stepmother, looking into her enchanted mirror and asking, "Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The magic mirror answers back, "You, my queen, are fair, but there is a fairer." Okay, verbatim, I don't remember. But what the mirror says basically is that you're beautiful, but there's somebody fairer than you. Jealous, the queen asks, "Who is this girl? Who is this other person?" And so the mirror responds, "Skin white as snow, hair black as ebony, lips red as," I don't remember if it was as the rose or blood, but one of those. Let's go with rose. "And lips red as a rose." And instantly, obviously, the queen remembers and the queen knows it's Snow White. And so we cut to Snow White. Now, mind you, Snow White is actually a princess, but because her stepmother was so jealous of her beauty, she gets cast aside and she is forced to dress like a servant. She is forced to wear rags, and she is forced to work in a place that is supposed to be her home. And so a prince happens to come around and see her while she's cleaning, and he hears her voice and he falls in love with her voice, and obviously he climbs the wall and then they meet and they have like a 2 minutes would be generous to say. They have like a 30-second conversation and then they're basically in love. And the queen sees it, and I think she knew that Snow White falling in love and, marrying and moving away would be a kind of bad thing for her position in the throne. She asks her loyal huntsman to get Snow White to bring her to a certain spot in the woods alone and to basically end her life. He drops the knife and he kneels in front of Snow White and tells her, "I'm so sorry. You gotta get out of here because the queen is super jealous of you and she's gonna kill you and blah blah blah. So get away while you can." Scared out of her life, Snow White obviously runs away to the forest, and she finds a way into a cottage owned by 7 dwarves While she's taking a nap, the dwarves leave the mine because their workday is over, and they go home and find Snow White asleep in their beds. And then they learn that she's running away from the queen, and they know that the queen is super mean, and they don't like her. So they let her stay. They let Snow White stay, and so Snow White stays the night, and they dine, and they sing, and it's super cute, and it's super fun. Meanwhile, in the castle, the queen is told by the huntsman that he has killed Snow White, and he hands her her heart, supposedly. So the queen goes once again to her magic mirror and asks once again, who's the fairest of them all? And once again, the mirror tells her, well, you're beautiful, but Snow White is better. But then he tells her, that is not her heart you're holding. That is the heart of a boar. So Snow White is alive. And obviously she asks, well, where is she? And that's when she learns that Snow White is hiding in the Seven Dwarves cottage. Enraged by all of this, she goes into her secret witch lab, let's call it that, her secret witch lab, and there she creates the infamous poisoned apple. The next day, while the dwarfs were away at work, the queen, now dressed as an old beggar woman, arrives at the cottage, and through very much manipulation, she gets Snow White to actually take a bite from the apple, making her believe that this apple is super magic and it will grant her a wish. And she bites the apple, and well, she falls into the curse. Now, villains get what they deserve in this type of story during this time in storytelling, because the villain is killed instantly. She gets what she deserves, and the people watching the movie understand that she was evil just because she was evil, and she got what she deserved. And Snow White was kind, and Snow White was good, and Snow White was beautiful, and so she was saved in the end. And the interesting thing is that nowadays, if you tell a story like this, people will brush it off as too simplistic and too unrealistic, and we don't really know anything about the characters. Why was the queen so mad and so jealous? What made her become this evil queen? Why did Snow White never fight back? Why did the prince fall in love with her in like 2 seconds? Why this and why that? And back then, I mean, we're talking about, remember, this movie was made in the 30s, where the role of women in society wasn't exactly as big as it is today. The messages seen in children's movies weren't exactly as big or as complex as they are today. So there are a lot of differences, which is exactly why I wanted to start this series, because the book is super different from that. The tagline from Mirror Mirror is actually, what if the evil queen poisoned the prince instead? Isn't that interesting though? Because then the prince doesn't get to be the hero of the story, but instead we get Snow White to be the hero. So I don't know, let's find out. Like I did in my review of Emily in Paris, I'm gonna give you the good, I'm gonna give you the not so good, and I'm gonna give you a few nitpicks along the way. Not only that, but I want to share with you 2 quotes that really, really stood out to me. So let's begin. Let's discuss what the book is about and how it differs actually from the movie. We know what the movie is about. We know what happens, how it happens, but we don't really know why it happens, right? This story actually opens up the curtain a little bit. We get to see the evil queen's backstory. In this story, she is called Ingrid. Ingrid has a sister who happens to be Snow White's future mother. Now, these two girls live with their very abusive dad, and they have a very, very rough childhood. So Ingrid, because she is the oldest daughter, tries as hard as she can to protect her little sister from getting harmed, from being in any harm's way. By doing this, she helps her sister and herself run away from the very toxic and dangerous home life. While Ingrid and her little sister Catherine are running away from their home life, they encounter a farmer along the way. Now, this farmer actually allows the girls to live with him. His farm specializes in apples. While working with the farmer, Catherine actually has a talent for growing apples. Her apples are very distinct and they do very, very well while selling them in the market. So well, in fact, that the prince of the land actually demands those apples, to be served to him because he has heard the rumors and now he wants to try it out for himself. And when he does, he absolutely loves them. So when he meets Catherine, he instantly falls in love. And Catherine returns the favor because she also instantly falls in love. And slowly, well, not so slowly, but as they grow up, they start to become more and more and more in love. And Ingrid is more often than not pushed aside, just like it was when she was little with her dad. She gets pushed aside, and I believe there is a part in the book where Catherine actually gets to live in the palace, but Ingrid does not. And soon enough, Catherine is now fully living in the palace and getting married to the prince and living her best life. Whereas Ingrid is not. Ingrid is still living with the farmer, but now she finds this very peculiar mirror. The mirror is a prison to this being, this magical being, and he manipulates people into trusting him, into doing things for him. And she turns out to be very, very, very easy to manipulate by the mirror. And every day that she comes to visit it, she becomes more and more and more involved with it in a way where she feels like she needs the mirror to survive. She needs the mirror because it's the only thing that makes her happy. And one day she decides to run away and take the mirror with her. And when she moves away, she learns that her sister is not only married to the king, that her sister is now not only married to the king, but expecting a child. So that Catherine that she once knew is doing very, very well for herself. When the child is born, Ingrid meets her, and she's just in shock of how similar, of how much of a reflection Snow White is of her mother. And by this I mean that she is every bit as kind and as beautiful as Catherine is to this point, filled with so much jealousy because her sister is actually living a good life compared to Ingrid, who is still struggling to this day. And Ingrid starts to resent this to a point where when Catherine tragically dies, Ingrid does everything in her power to get Snow's father, who obviously is the king, to marry her now. And Snow is actually really sweet towards Ingrid. She doesn't hate her. She has absolutely no hatred whatsoever. She actually loves her aunt To her, it's Aunt Ingrid, and she can't understand why her aunt is so hateful to her, why her aunt is so neglectful, why she pushes away so much. And as much as Snow pulls, Ingrid pushes away. And this comes to a point where Ingrid, fully persuaded by the mirror, gets full control, and she basically enchants her husband, Snow's father, that he's super crazy and to act super erratically, to the point where she makes up the story that the king has lost his mind, therefore he can no longer rule. So this way, Ingrid bans him, exiles him from the kingdom, and she becomes queen by forfeit because Snow was too young, and so Ingrid becomes queen. And so we have the evil queen with her special mirror. This is a midpoint where the novel meets with the movie that we know. But the thing is, Ingrid's story and Snow White's story isn't really in chronological order. We get one chapter Snow, one chapter Ingrid, and so forth. And most, if not all, of Ingrid's chapters are flashbacks, while Snow's story is basically the movie from her perspective. So we get to know what she's thinking, how she perceives things, and that kind of thing, which I think was really interesting. Now, I don't want to give too much away, so I'm not going into the ending, but I will say that in essence, it's similar to what happened in the movie, but the way things happen are different, very different from the movie version. The way things happen in the end and how things end is very charming, actually. It's very satisfying, and you get this feeling of you feel pity, and you do feel remorse, and you do feel happy about the way things worked out. Not for every character, but you do get to feel, I guess you feel complete. You feel good. You feel happy about the way things turned out. Because at the end of the day, things turn out for the better, and they happen the way they were supposed to happen, following this idea that children's stories are supposed to interpret, are supposed to teach morals and lessons to younger audiences. And I feel like this book manages to do just that. Now that we got the story down, let's see what is good about this novel. Good things to point out. Character development. I really, really, really liked knowing why Ingrid, or the evil queen, was the way she was. I liked this backstory. I thought might have been a little too cliche, but it was more than we got from the original story, so that's good. I liked seeing her vulnerable side, because even though she does things, and even though she is very much manipulated and persuaded by the mirror, you get to hear her inner conflict. So it's not like she is doing things to do them, or because this voice inside her head is telling her to do it. She questions it, which in a way, it makes you think, okay, so there's a bit of humanity left in there. And maybe she was too much, maybe the mirror was too much inside her head to prevent anything bad from happening. But the fact that she was still thinking that the way she was acting was wrong is a good way to tell you that she at least has had a conscience, that she at least doubted the things she was doing. It's sad that she wasn't strong enough to fight the mirror, and it's very sad the fact that she met her end, and she's a victim of circumstance. Because in the end, she became a victim of circumstance. The things happened to her. The things that happened to her. I mean, if you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. And I feel like you might say that, yes, this applies to Ingrid, but at the end of the day, she was still a victim. And she was very much manipulated. And it's sad that this whole manipulation stems from a place, a very vulnerable place of abandonment, of self-hate, of insecurity, of jealousy, and it kept growing and growing and growing. And the mirror, obviously, it fed off of this. It fed off because it was the one way it could control Ingrid. And so that's why things happened. Another good point. The character of Snow, in comparison to what we see in the 1937 Disney movie, is the character of Snow White compared to what we see in the 1937 movie, in my opinion, was more complete than what was originally presented. She is more active, more active than just singing around and cleaning around and that. Especially in the third act, she is way more active, and I really like that about her. She was more active, she was stronger, she was more, we got a very good character development from her. Through the story, you get to see the way Snow starts thinking about her aunt. At the beginning of the story, while she's scrubbing the floors and she's dressed in rags and cleaning the floors, she still thinks highly of her aunt. She still likes her, she still loves her. And it's very incredible, the character development that we get to see through the novel, from Snow loving her aunt but feeling sad that she is now being rejected by her aunt, and she is the receiver of all this hate from her aunt, and her learning that her aunt isn't exactly a good person, and she dwells in very mythical things and very dangerous things. And then, I can't spoil it, but she gets closure, which is something that the animated movie didn't really give the audience. I feel like back then, audiences didn't really need that type of closure because not a lot of people questioned what the story was doing, why the story was doing it that way, why the characters were acting in such a way. They didn't really question it. Today, we question more things than we need to. The funny thing is that here we get an explanation and we get a relationship development, if that is such a thing. The closure that we get, it feels earned, it feels like it was needed. It felt really good to have that type of closure in the story, especially between these two very polar opposite characters, but who are the crux of the entire novel and the entire story. Because let's face it, Snow White wouldn't really be Snow White without an evil queen. She does need that antagonist. Not a villain, but an antagonist. Because in the movie, the evil queen is the villain. Hello, classic Disney villain. But in the story, I wouldn't call her a Disney villain. I wouldn't call her a villain. I would call her more of an antagonist. Because, like I said, she was a victim of circumstance. Another good thing to point out, another character that was better, another character that was better from what we see in the movie, the prince actually gets a name this time. He is called Henry in this one, and he's pretty good. He's better than what we got in the animated movie. We got more lines out of him, and more of a more of an active role rather than appearing at the first 5 minutes and then suddenly appearing back at the last 2 minutes of the movie. So that was pretty good. What I liked, keeping in theme with relationship development, in this story we actually get more, if not the development that we were lacking in the 1937 movie. So in here, Snow and the prince don't really only meet at the well, and then he suddenly finds her asleep in the middle of the forest in a glass coffin. That doesn't happen in this one. In this one, they do meet at the well, but they meet again when she runs away and is living with the dwarves. They meet again in the forest, and from that point on, he becomes more of a figure, more of an influence. He is very much present in her life. I feel like what they did with Snow White and the Prince was very much needed. We did need more of a development especially because it's one of the Disney properties, classic Disney properties, that hasn't gotten a sequel, that doesn't have any other type of development in the story. You might say, like, there isn't. Nothing canon, exactly. We don't really have any canon extra content. So the fact that this book tackled that and we get a good, or at least we get a better relationship between these two, was very much appreciated. And now let's turn into the not so good parts. This review will be a little different than the Emily in Paris one because the bad or not so good things kind of mixed into the nitpicking stuff. What's not so good? The story. So I know I said that we get a better understanding of why people did what they did, and we get more of an explanation, more backstory, more development in the characters, their relationships, and this and that. But at some point, the story just became a little too childish. The story became a little too cartoonish, too, I don't want to say cliche, but some things just didn't really make sense. The reason why I say this is because, I mean, it's no secret that the queen poisoned the prince, and the way that happens, without giving too much away, the way the queen poisons the prince is so ridiculous. I couldn't even, it's so ridiculous. I kind of remember dropping the book, just dropping the novel, and not picking it up for like 2 days because I didn't want to continue reading. I couldn't believe that they did that. So you are beginning the story. The story was good up to that point. The development of the characters was good up to that point. And that's my problem. The way the prince gets poisoned, it makes no sense. It would make sense when you have Snow, somebody so sheltered, somebody so naive, somebody so kind, who believes the better in people, who doesn't have any negative feelings towards anybody in the original story, and believes that everyone around her is good. It makes sense as to why this girl, because she's a girl, she's a 14-year-old girl, would get manipulated into taking a bite from a poisoned apple by someone she believes is an old beggar woman, instead of being her evil stepmother, who was actually a witch. It makes sense. In this book, it doesn't make sense why a prince, why someone, it doesn't even matter that he's a prince, why someone who is smart, who knows tactics, who helps other characters along the way, and he gets roped into eating a poisoned apple? Why? I couldn't for the life of me understand why would he do that. If he has helped our characters all along the way, and he has done several good deeds, and he knows about the world, and he understands people, and he knows actions, why would he trust someone? And I don't understand. Something else that kind of bothered me, maybe it's just me because I was expecting something else, but the character of the huntsman, I feel like he's a very lost opportunity. I feel like he is one of those characters that deserve a lot more development. And actually, I found another spin on the Snow White story. However, this one doesn't really dwell into the Disney canon. This one is more of a grim tales retelling thing, more of a retelling of the classic tale by the Grimm brothers. And this one does give the huntsman a lot more to work with, a lot more personality, a lot more development, motivation, whatever you want. In this one, I felt like it was such a missed opportunity. He does get to the field and he does try to kill Snow, but then he retracts and he feels bad, and then when he is caught after lying to the queen about actually having Snow White's heart when he didn't, the only thing we know he did is that in his last moments, at least according to the novel, he just yelled out, "Long live Queen Snow," and that's it. If he's a huntsman and he knows the woods, knowing that sooner or later the queen was gonna find out what he did, why didn't he just drop off the heart of the boar and run away into the woods, hide, because he's a huntsman, he's supposed to know the woods, find Snow White, help her out into defeating the queen, into getting back her throne, her throne that actually belongs to her, and I don't know, become Queen Snow's loyal huntsman. Why didn't he do that? Instead, he dies for the better good, but not really, because he wasn't really involved into the whole story. He only did one good action, and that is it. I feel like it's a very lost opportunity, and I feel like he deserved better. I feel like he should have gotten more development. He should have gotten more action in the story. He should have been a lot more involved. Without diving too much into spoiler territory, we could leave the bad things here because there's a lot more to dive into, but I don't really want to dive into spoiler territory because what if you guys haven't read it? And I really don't want to dive too much into spoilers, so let's leave it here. And so with that in mind, I want to end up this review by saying that I do think the novel was good. I would recommend you guys check it out. If you're a Disney fan like myself, if you are a Snow White fan like myself, if you like fairy tale retellings like I do, I think you're really gonna like it. It's a quick read. I read it in about 2 or 3 days, and it's a very easy, quick read. It's entertaining more than anything. It's cute. It's very sweet, but like I said, it's pretty childish, and it misses the mark on going the distance. Like, it misses the mark on becoming deeper than it really does. Go even further, it could give you more development, but it kind of it gets short. It kind of like runs short. It doesn't really go the long distance. But what can you do? At least it was a good story. If you like this review, give a comment down below and tell me what you thought. Give a like, or dislike, whatever you feel like, and subscribe if you want. I make videos like this, and I will continue to make to make videos like this all month long, because this was the first chapter of Spooktober, which I'm super excited. And next week, we will be discussing a tale everybody knows. We will be looking at a tale as old as time. See you on the next one. Bye.